video, I'll be talking about ATX power supplies. They've been around for quite a long time. I think the first ATX power supply came out in 1995. The first computer that I used that had an ATX power supply was back in, I think, 1997 when I got a I think it was a Pentium 166 MMX that had a, I'm sorry, that one had a AT power supply. I think the Pentium 2 had the ATX power supply. That's right, which I got in 1998, I think, early 1998. So this is a ATX power supply for a Dell Optiplex 360, I think. So the first ATX power supplies only had this 24-pin power connectors, and however, as time went by, they added a 4-pin power connector in addition to the 24-pin for the ATX power supply. This came out in 2008. This is for Dell Optiplex 360. I also used them for Pentium 1, Pentium 2, Pentium 3, Pentium 4, and this one here is a power supply, ATX power supply I got back in 2009. I first put this, I still have it, it's still being used. It's being used in my other computer, which has an i7 4790K, not 90K, it's just a i7 4970 processor with a GeForce GTX 970 4GB graphics card. So originally I used this power supply in my AMD Phenom 2 945 Denib. That was a computer that I put it into. I also built another computer which had a AMD Athlon 2 245 rigor processor in there as well. I had two power supplies like this. I think I bought them at Fry's Electronics, I think. They were not very expensive. They was only like $49 or something. And this is very old and it still works. Even today, this power supply is still working today. This is a modular power supply, as you can see. I think this is rated for 700 watts. The contents of this box, I don't have the power supply in here. It's in my computer actually. Still being used. And how many years does that make it? 2009. It's about 11, 5, so 16 years. That's quite a long time, and it's, as you can see, the capacitors in this thing are top notch. All the parts in it are top notch. Still works even today. This is a more modern power supply, as you can see. It's a semi-modular ATX power supply. The difference between this new one And the old one is that for the new power supplies, it has of course, the 24-pin standard ATX connector. In addition to that, it also has a 8-pin as well. For the previous one that you saw for the Dell Optiplex, it had a 2-pin, as you can see there, a 4-pin, and now they have 8-pin, which provides more power, of course. And there's another 8-pin as well. There's 2 of them. I don't know if some motherboard use that or not. I'm not sure. So that's the difference between the modern ATX power supplies versus the older ones. There's various types of power supplies. You got modular, you have a semi-modular like this one. The other one that I have here is fully modular, so you don't have to have as many cables in your computer, which would clutter it up. But ATX power supply has been around for, like I said, how many years is that? 1995, so that's what is that? 25, 30 years. Been around for 30 years. Before that, we used to have something called an AT power supply. I think that was called Advanced Technology or something. The difference between the older ATX power supplies and newer ones is that the older ones had Molex cables, Molex power cables. The newer ones have, of course, SATA power cables. The newer ones also have some Molex cables as well. As you can see, this is a Molex cable. This newer power supply has that as well. It has Molex and SATA. Both, actually. That's what I want to share with you today. As for the power capacity, the power supplies, ATX power supplies back in the 1990s, basically were rated at, I think, anywhere from 300 watt to 450 watts, something like that. And in the 2000s, they were rated for, I think, anywhere from 400 to 500. Nowadays, power supplies are rated, if you want to get a good one, at least 700 watt. And I have another one here I recently bought. I had to replace the one on my computer, which was this one. This 650 watt didn't provide enough juice for the hardware that I had in there, because I have a i7 13700KF with a GeForce RTX 4070 Super 12 gigabyte graphics card, about 8 storage devices, and a number hard drive and stuff like that. So it basically didn't have enough juice when I was playing games, you know. And what would happen was that the computer would restart or something, or the computer would have a blank screen, and that's the kind of issues that I was having with it. But so you have to really, I think for these days, if you have a pretty decent computer with at least an i7 or i9 or a Ryzen 7 or 9 or something like that, it would be good to get at least 750 or higher, maybe 850 on my i7 4700KF computer that I had built back in 2015. I wanted the guy to put in a very good power supply, so he put in a 850 Corsair power supply. I paid quite a bit of money for that computer. I paid more than $2,000 for it with everything. It was the top of the line computer back then, and I wanted a good power supply. One thing I never cheap out when I buy a computer or put it together myself is that I don't cheap out on a power supply. I try to get the best power supply I can, and back in 2009 this was one of the better power supplies at the time. Even back in the Pentium days, Pentium 4 days, I would always get the best power supply, and as a result the computers that I used didn't have many problems. That's what I wanted to share with you today. If you have any thoughts, please leave it in the comment section below, and thank you for watching.